My fiancé said, "I'm firing your best man. He's hotter than you, and it'll ruin our photos." My best man was my brother, who'd survived a house fire, saving me. I said, "Then there's no wedding." I canceled everything within 24 hours. When my brother thanked me for choosing family over someone so shallow. I, 30 male, have an older brother. When I was 9 years old and he was 12, our house caught fire at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. Electrical fault in the attic, old wiring in an old house, the kind of thing nobody thinks about until it's too late. I was asleep in my bedroom at the end of the hallway. My brother's room was closer to the stairs, closer to the exit. He could have gotten out. He was 12 years old, and he could have just run downstairs and out the front door and been safe. Instead, he came to get me. The hallway ceiling was already coming down. He got to my door, pulled me out of bed, and shielded me with his body as we went through the hallway. A section of burning ceiling collapsed on him, on his back and shoulders. He kept moving. He pushed me toward the stairs, and we got out through the front door. The neighbors had already called 911. Paramedics were there within minutes. I had minor smoke inhalation and a small burn on my left arm. My brother had second and third-degree burns across his upper back, his right shoulder, and part of his right arm. He spent 3 weeks in a burn unit. He had 4 skin graft surgeries over the next 2 years. He has visible scarring that he'll carry for the rest of his life. He saved my life. He was 12. I need you to understand that before I tell you what my fiancé said, because without that context, you might think I overreacted. I did not overreact. My fiancé and I had been together for 3 years, engaged for 8 months. The wedding was planned for June, about 6 weeks from the time of this post. Venue booked. Caterer confirmed. DJ hired. Photographer paid a $2,000 deposit. Flowers ordered. Her dress bought. My suit tailored. Invitations sent to 180 people. The whole production. My brother was my best man. Obviously, there was never a question. He's not just my brother. He's the reason I'm alive to get married at all. When I asked him, he cried. My brother is 6'2", works in construction, has forearms like tree trunks, and he cried in my living room when I asked him to be my best man. It's one of my favorite memories. My fiancée never had a problem with him. They got along fine. She came to family dinners, holidays, barbecues. She'd seen his scars 100 times. He doesn't hide them, wears t-shirts and tank tops, doesn't make it a thing. It's just part of who he is. 3 weeks ago, we had the final meeting with our wedding photographer. Nice guy, very professional, walked us through the shot list. He mentioned that the best man and maid of honor would be in a lot of the formal portraits, the altar shots, the wedding party lineup, the candids during the reception. Standard stuff. That night, after the meeting, my fiancée was quiet during dinner. I asked if something was wrong. She said she needed to talk to me about something sensitive. Okay, what's up? I think we need to replace your best man. I laughed. Literally laughed. I thought she was joking. Replace him with who? A cardboard cutout. I'm serious. I've been thinking about it since the photographer meeting. Your brother is going to be in almost every important photo. And I think it's going to be a distraction. A distraction how? Look, I know this sounds terrible, but he's really attractive. Like objectively. He's tall and built, and he has that whole rugged thing going on. And then there are the scars, which I know, but in photos they're going to draw attention. People are going to be looking at him instead of us. I want our wedding photos to be about us, not about your brother's situation. I put my fork down. His situation. You know what I mean? I really don't. He's hotter than you, and his scars are going to be distracting. There, I said it. I'm sorry, but someone had to. Nobody had to say that. Nobody on earth had to say that. I sat there for a long time. She kept talking. She'd clearly rehearsed this. She said she'd done research, and that wedding photographers recommend a cohesive aesthetic in the wedding party. She said her maid of honor would look weird standing next to someone that much taller and more muscular. She said she'd already thought of a replacement, her cousin, who I've met exactly twice and who she described as the right height and energy for the photos. I let her finish. Then I said, my brother ran into a burning building when he was 12 years old to save my life. He carries scars on his body because he chose me over his own safety. He's going to stand next to me at my wedding, or there's not going to be a wedding. Pick one. She said I was being emotional and not thinking clearly. She said this was about aesthetics, not feelings. She said, I'm not saying he can't come. He just doesn't need to be in every photo. He's the best man. He's in the photos. End of discussion. It's my wedding too, and he's my brother, who saved my life. She went to bed without speaking to me. I slept on the couch. Not because she kicked me out of the bedroom, because I didn't want to be near her. I lay there on my own couch in my own house and realized I was engaged to someone who looked at the scars my brother got saving a 9-year-old kid from a house fire and saw a photography problem. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. Made coffee. Asked what I wanted for dinner. I said, I want you to tell me you were wrong last night and that my brother is still the best man. I think you need a few days to calm down and see this from my perspective. I don't need a few days. I need an answer. Then my answer is that I think we should compromise. Maybe he can be a groomsman instead of best man. That way he's there, but not front and center. That's not a compromise. That's a demotion. For a man who saved my life. You keep bringing that up like it's a trump card. It is a trump card. It's the only trump card that matters. She rolled her eyes and said, fine, be stubborn. But when the photos come back and all anyone can see is your brother, don't say I didn't warn you. I nodded, said okay, went to work, and started making phone calls. By 5 p.m. that day, I had canceled the venue, lost the $3,500 deposit. It hurt, but I'd rather lose money than my self-respect, called the caterer, and canceled within a 30-day window. So I got a partial refund of about $1,800 out of the $4,200 I paid, emailed the DJ to cancel. He was cool about it. Refunded me $400 of the $600 deposit since he hadn't started prepping yet, and called the photographer to explain I was canceling. He was genuinely sorry and said he'd refund $800 of the $2,000 deposit. The florist was the worst. Full deposit gone, $1,100. No refunds for cancellations within 45 days. Total money lost. Roughly $6,200 in non-refundable deposits. That's real money. That's my savings taking a hit I'll feel for the rest of the year. But every time I thought about the cost, I thought about a 12-year-old boy dragging his little brother through a burning hallway with the ceiling collapsing on his back. And the math got real simple. I came home that evening. She was on the couch watching TV. I sat down and said, I canceled the wedding. The silence lasted about 4 seconds. You what? Venue, caterer, DJ, photographer, florist. All canceled. The wedding is off. You can't do that without talking to me. You tried to remove my brother from my wedding because of how he'd look in photos. The brother who has burned scars because he saved my life. I don't need to talk to you about anything else. What followed was about 2 hours of the most intense argument I've ever been part of. She screamed. She cried. She called me every name in the book. She said I was choosing him over her. She said I was destroying our future over vanity. She said I'd regret this for the rest of my life. I said, I'd regret standing at that altar knowing I let someone I love be treated like a prop that doesn't fit the aesthetic. I'd regret that every single day. She packed a bag and left to stay at her parents' house. Before she walked out, she said, when you come to your senses, call me. I said, don't wait by the phone. I called my brother that night. Told him everything. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, you didn't have to do that. Yeah, I did. That was a lot of money. You ran into a fire for me. I can handle losing some deposits. He didn't say anything for a while. Then, thank you for choosing me. Brother, I will choose you every single time. He hung up. I know he was crying. I was too. That's where things stand. Wedding off. Fiancée at her parents' house. $6,200 poorer. But I can look my brother in the eye. And right now, that's worth more than any wedding. Updates coming because I can already feel the storm building from her side. Update 1, 5 days later. If you thought my fiancé was going to accept the cancellation quietly, you underestimated the gravitational pull of entitlement. Let me bring you up to speed. The day after my original post, her mother called me. Not texted, called. At 7:45 a.m. on a Saturday. I answered because I figured I'd rather get it over with. I need you to explain to me why you're throwing away a 3-year relationship over photographs. Good morning to you too. This isn't funny. My daughter is devastated. She can't eat. She can't sleep. You've humiliated her. She asked me to remove my brother, the one with burn scars from saving my life, from the wedding party because he'd looked too attractive and too distracting in photos. I don't think I'm the one who should be embarrassed here. She didn't mean it like that. She's just a perfectionist. She wants everything to be beautiful. My brother is beautiful. His scars are beautiful. And the fact that she can't see that tells me everything I need to know. You're being dramatic. Every bride has preferences about the wedding party. It's her day. It was supposed to be our day, and she wanted to use it to humiliate someone I love. We're done. She hung up on me. Cool. Over the next 3 days, the campaign began. My fiancée. I should probably start calling her my ex, though she definitely doesn't see it that way. Started rallying her troops. Her bridesmaids began texting me. Not all of them. 2 of the 4 were genuinely confused and just wanted to know what happened. I told them the truth calmly, and they both said some version of, wow, that's messed up. But the other 2 were fully recruited soldiers in the ex's army. One of them sent me a paragraph about how all brides have the right to curate their wedding aesthetic and that I was weaponizing your brother's trauma to win an argument. Weaponizing his trauma by insisting he stand next to me at my wedding. Sure. The other bridesmaid sent me a link to some wedding planning blog post about having difficult conversations about your wedding party and said, maybe if you'd handled this with more emotional maturity, you wouldn't be in this situation. I didn't respond to either of them. Then my ex escalated. She started calling my family members. My MOM. She called my mother and told her that I'd overreacted and that the whole thing was a misunderstanding and that she never said anything about his scars. She lied, directly, specifically, to my mother's face. She said she'd only suggested that my brother step down to groomsman because she thought the height difference would look awkward in photos and that I twisted it into something about the fire. My mom called me. Is what she's saying true? Was this really just about height? Mom, she specifically said he's hotter than me and that his scars would be distracting in photos. She used the word situation to describe burns he got saving my life. She said she wanted to replace him with her cousin who had the right energy. This was not about height. My mom paused, then said something in a voice I haven't heard since I was a kid getting caught lying. If she called me and lied to my face about something involving my son who has burn scars from saving my other son, she's lucky all you did was cancel the wedding. My mom doesn't play. My mom then called my ex back and told her, in what I'm told was a very measured but devastating tone, that she knew the full truth, that lying about it made it worse, and that she should stop contacting this family. My ex apparently started crying and said my mom was taking sides. My mom said, I'm taking the side of my son who has scars on his back because he's a hero. You should try it sometime. Have I mentioned I love my mother? But here's where it gets truly wild. My ex decided that since the direct approach wasn't working, she'd go around me. She contacted the venue, my venue that I had booked and canceled. She called them and tried to reinstate the reservation under her name. The venue coordinator, who I'd built a good rapport with during planning, called me to verify. She said, your fiancée called and said the cancellation was a mistake and she'd like to rebook for the same date. I said, she's my ex-fiancée and she has no authorization to make any changes to that booking. The cancellation stands. The coordinator said, that's what I figured. I told her I couldn't process anything without the original account holder's authorization. She wasn't happy. Wasn't happy doesn't begin to describe it. My ex then texted me, if you won't rebook the venue, I'll find another one. We're getting married whether you like it or not. I said, we're not. I've been very clear about this. Please stop. You're going to throw away 3 years because you're too proud to see reason. I'm going to throw away 3 years because you looked at my brother's burn scars and saw a problem to solve. That's not pride. That's self-respect. She didn't respond to that. 2 days later, her dad called me. Now, her dad and I had always gotten along. He's a quiet guy, works with his hands, doesn't say much. He called and said, son, I don't know all the details of what happened between you two, and frankly, I don't want to. But I do know my daughter, and I know she can be particular. Whatever she said about your brother, I'm sorry. He seems like a good man. I appreciated that. I told him so, but I also said, I can't marry someone who sees my brother that way. It's not about one comment. It's about what the comment revealed. He sighed and said, I understand. I wish I didn't, but I do. That was the most honest conversation anyone in her family had with me through this whole thing. Then she played her nastiest card. She called my brother directly. She got his number from her phone because we'd all been in a group chat for a family barbecue last summer. She called him and said, according to my brother, I need you to talk to your brother. This has gone too far. I didn't mean anything by what I said, and he's blowing it out of proportion. If you really care about him, you'll convince him to work this out. She tried to use my brother as a weapon to get what she wanted. The same brother she wanted to exile from the photos. She wanted him to advocate for her. The audacity was almost impressive in its shamelessness. My brother told her, you wanted me out of the wedding because of how I look. My brother canceled a wedding to stand up for me. And now you want me to help you get him back? Lady, I'd run into another fire before I'd do that. Then he hung up and called me, and we laughed about it for 20 minutes. Because sometimes you gotta laugh or you'll lose your mind. Update 2, 11 days later. Final update. I'll keep this as organized as I can because a lot happened in the last week and a half. After the phone call to my brother, my ex went dark for about 4 days. No texts, no calls, no proxy attacks through family or friends. Just silence. I thought maybe she'd finally accepted it. I was wrong. She was regrouping. Last Monday, I got a certified letter in the mail. Not from a lawyer, from her. She'd actually gone to an office supply store, typed up a formal-looking letter on nice paper, and sent it certified mail. The letter formally requested that I reimburse her for all wedding-related expenses she incurred in good faith, including her dress, $3,800, her shoes for $150, bridesmaids' gifts she'd already purchased, $600, a hair and makeup trial, $275, and emotional damages resulting from the abrupt and unilateral cancellation. She put a total at the bottom, $5,125 plus an amount to be determined for emotional suffering. She sent me a fake invoice for emotional suffering on stationery. My buddy, who's a paralegal, looked at it and literally said, this isn't a legal document. This is a craft project. He said she has zero legal standing to demand reimbursement for her personal wedding expenses, especially since I was the one who paid for all the shared vendor deposits. He said the emotional damages line was particularly creative and completely meaningless. I didn't respond to the letter. I put it in a folder with all the other documentation, screenshots of texts, the phone call log, everything just in case. Because at this point, I was starting to worry she might actually try to take me to small claims court just to cause problems. My paralegal buddy said she could technically file, but she'd lose and the filing fee would be money wasted. Still, I wanted to be prepared. Then came the vendor play. This one actually made me angry, and up until this point, I've been mostly just sad and exhausted. I'd ordered my suit for the wedding from a high-end menswear shop, custom tailored, paid $1,400, non-refundable because it was made to my measurements. The shop has a policy where they hold the suit until 2 weeks before the event. I called them after the cancellation and said I'd pick it up whenever. It's my suit. I paid for it. I'll wear it to something else eventually. My ex called the shop and told them that the wedding was back on and that SHE would be picking up the suit for alterations. The shop owner called me to verify because, thank God, he actually follows his own policies and doesn't release garments to anyone but the purchaser. Your fiancée called and wants to pick up the suit. Something about needing it altered. She's my ex-fiancée. We're not getting married. Please don't release anything to anyone but me. Copy that. I'll flag the order. When I confronted her about this via text, breaking my own rule about not engaging, she said, I was going to hold on to it as leverage, so you'd have to talk to me. She was going to hold my suit hostage, to force a conversation. I cannot make this up. I told my paralegal friend about the suit thing. He said, dude, she's trying to steal your property. That's not leverage, that's theft. He helped me draft a simple text message that said, any attempt to obtain, withhold, or interfere with my personal property will be documented and may result in legal action. Do not contact any of my vendors, tailor, or service providers again. She responded, you sound like a robot. This isn't who you are. I didn't respond. Now here's the part that actually brought resolution, and it didn't come from me. It came from her own bridesmaid, one of the two who'd been reasonable from the start. This bridesmaid had been my ex's friend since college. She'd stayed neutral through the whole thing, but she'd been quietly watching my ex's behavior escalate. After the certified letter and the suit stunt, she apparently sat my ex down and said, and this is secondhand from a mutual friend, "I love you, but you need to hear this. You asked a man to cut his brother out of his wedding because of his burn scars. Burns he got saving that man's life. And instead of apologizing, you've spent 3 weeks trying to bully him into coming back. You called his brother and tried to manipulate him. You sent a fake legal letter. You tried to steal his suit. This isn't heartbreak anymore. This is harassment. And I can't watch it." That bridesmaid stopped talking to her. And apparently, when she laid it all out like that to the wider friend group, 2 more people quietly distanced themselves. Not publicly. Nobody made a dramatic announcement. They just stopped responding to texts as quickly. Stopped showing up to things. The slow, quiet withdrawal that hurts more than any blow-up. My ex's social circle contracted, and she did it entirely to herself. The financial fallout for me is real, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Total losses, $6,200 in canceled vendor deposits. The $1,400 suit I'll keep and eventually wear somewhere. But the deposits are gone. Combined with a ring, $8,500, which I'm keeping because it was bought with my money and in my state, an engagement ring given in anticipation of marriage that doesn't happen is legally returnable to the giver. I'm looking at rebuilding about $6,200 in savings over the next year. It stings. Every time I check my bank account, it stings. But here's what I didn't lose, my brother. Last Saturday, he came over, brought a 6-pack and a frozen pizza. We sat on my back porch and didn't talk about any of this for the first hour. Just watched the sky get dark and talked about nothing. Work stuff, football, whether the new truck he's looking at is worth the price. Normal brother stuff. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "I need to tell you something." All right, after she called me, after she asked me to convince you to come back. I almost did it. What? I almost called you and told you to reconsider. Because I felt guilty. Like I was the reason your relationship ended. Like if I didn't have these scars, or if I looked different, none of this would have happened. I actually picked up my phone and started typing. What stopped you? I realized that if she'd said that about anyone, any friend, any cousin, anyone with a scar or a birthmark or a wheelchair or anything, you still would have canceled the wedding. It wasn't about me. It was about who she is. And I was letting guilt make me think I was the problem when she was the problem. I didn't say anything for a while. Then I said, "You're not the problem. You've never been the problem. You're the reason I'm sitting on this porch drinking this mediocre beer. The beer's not that bad. The beer is terrible. Yeah, it's terrible." We laughed. And that was the moment where I knew I was going to be okay. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm over it. 3 years is 3 years. There are moments, brushing my teeth, driving to work, right before I fall asleep, where I forget and then remember. It's like a little electric shock every time. Oh, right. That happened. My life is different now. The house is quieter. Her stuff is gone. She had her dad pick it up while I was at work, which I appreciated because I didn't want another confrontation. The closet is half empty. The bathroom counter has too much space. There's a tan line on my ring finger that's fading slowly. Small things that remind you a person was here. A few people asked me if I'd give her another chance if she apologized. I thought about it honestly, because I owe you guys honesty. And the answer is no. Not because I don't believe people can grow. I do. But because when someone reveals how they see the world, an apology doesn't change the seeing. She looked at my brother's scars and saw a liability. That's not a bad day or a poor choice of words. That's a worldview. And I can't build a life with someone whose worldview includes looking at sacrifice and seeing inconvenience. My brother is doing well. He doesn't know I wrote any of this. He'd be mortified. He went back to his life, his job, his routine. He doesn't dwell on things the way I do. He never has. When we were kids and he was going through the skin grafts, he never complained. Not once. The nurses used to tell my parents he was the bravest kid they'd ever treated. He was 12 years old, lying in a burn unit with grafts peeling off his back, And he told my mom, at least I got us both out. That's who he is. That's who she wanted to move to the background of the photos. I'm done updating. This is the whole story. She might try more stuff. The entitlement doesn't just evaporate, but whatever comes next, I'll handle it privately. I don't need an audience anymore. I just needed to say it once out loud to people who'd understand. Thank you for reading. Thank you for the messages. And if you have someone in your life who'd run into a fire for you, hold on to them tight. They're the only thing that matters. Now I'm going to go return this terrible beer and get something better. My brother has the worst taste.